Well, welcome to another rendition of Mia's World. Welcome to my world. Welcome to New York City. It's very moody and tropical, and it's great because we have a very tropical sounding album and guest tonight. And my guest is an amazing singer, songwriter, musician, performer, lovely person in her own right, Alexia Bomtempo. Welcome to Mia's World, Alexia.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure.
Oh my God, it's such an exotic evening. It's in New York anyway. It feels like storms are coming, and
it does.
This is the album is like the calm before the storm. The new album that you're out with, Suspiro, which means breath. What does it mean?
It means like a deep sigh of relief. So it's like a positive, because I feel like sigh is a negative word and it's not really what that is. It's kind of like a sigh of relief. So in a way, it is the calm before the storm.
Right? It's calming before the negative, or storms are beautiful anyway. And one of your albums was called Storms and Stars, was it?
That's right. It was Chasing Storms and Stars was my previous record before this one. So, I didn't really make that connection. That totally makes sense.
I like to connect the dots. And so welcome to Mia's World. Welcome to my world. Welcome to an incredible evening. And thank you to my engineer, singer, songwriter, editor, etc., Jade Zabrich. So here we are and on another stormy evening, and I am so excited to have you because I first heard you, Alexia, on WKCR on the Brazil night, right? The sounds.
Oh, how nice!
And it was the most enchanting evening, and I try to make myself stay up because that show is on live 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. So I'm always like having coffee and trying to play music, and it was enchanting. So I heard glimpses of it before I fell asleep. So I said, I've been playing ever since, and here you are. So let's just hear. I love this. This was written about your style, a cinematic dream pop with a tropical indie rock twist. That was one thing. Your album Suspiro is an exploratory journey into Bomtempo's American disposition and bossa nova roots. That was from American songwriter. So before we have an extended interview chat interspersed with more of your music, here's what we heard in the medley to introduce Mia's World. First, we heard I'm in Love Again, which is a gorgeous tune written by Cy Coleman and Peggy Lee. So that was a cover of I'm in Love Again. What an incredible version. And the video is so romantic and just dreamy, I guess I would say. I don't know if you wanted to comment on that further, but that video.
Yes. You know, the song, I was searched when we were thinking about the repertoire for this record. I've always loved finding covers that aren't very well known and just giving them a complete different treatment. So I was researching, and I think I came across this song first. Well, Tony Bennett has done it, but I think that when I was doing some research, I listened to Blossom Deary's version of it, who I love, and we actually share the same birthday. She's one of my, you know, I adore her and her records and her style, and just she's just always been so clever with the songs that she chose to sing. And then I really loved this song, and I listened to the other versions, but it's always been done as a ballad. And our idea was to give it a more, kind of like Brazilian bossa vibe to it, and that's what we did. And for the video, which you mentioned, we recorded that in Rio in 2000. It was right before the world shut down, so the end of 2019. It was December of 2019.
Right?
It was, what's that?
Lucky that you did it then.
Yes, absolutely. We did it, in preparation for the album release, which happened later that spring. But I'm really glad that I was in Rio with my incredible friend, director, collaborator. Her name is Lívia Sá. She's Brazilian, but she actually lives here in New York. And we've done a lot of videos together, and I love working with her. And the idea for this video was to kind of, bring back some of the nostalgic feelings of like old Rio. And, it's almost about like falling in love with the city again. And we did it all in black and white on Super 8 film. So we didn't even know what we were doing because we were shooting on film. So, we just trusted that we were going to get something that we could work with. So that's how it came about. But it was all about just falling in love with the city again.
Gorgeous, gorgeous video and song. Then we heard Suspiro, the title of the album, which, as you said, sort of a calm sigh, some kind of a sigh.
Yes.
Domenico Lancelotti and Bruno Di Lullo are the writers, right?
Yes.
And then I love Serpente. It's got opening percussion. It's just a very lush sound, Serpente, contrasting with some of the more bossa sounds of some of the other. And finally, Les Chansons d'Amour by Alberto Continentino and Stefan San Juan, who's the producer of your album, right?
That's right. Yes.
The drummer, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
So we're going to have an extended chat here, but before we do that, a few little items of trivia that we do every week. A few birthdays on July 6th, even though you may not be listening to this on July 6th, but we're recording it July 6th. So here are the couple of interesting birthdays. The father of rock and roll, Bill Haley, born July 6th, 1927. The great Russian pianist, Vladimir Ashkenazy, 1937. Louis Bellson, the American jazz drummer, born 1924, July 6th. Jazz singer Phyllis Hyman, 1950. A great singer-songwriter, Nancy Griffith, 1953. Comedian Kevin Hart. Rapper 50 Cent. Sylvester Stallone. Frida Kahlo, the Mexican artist, and the Dalai Lama. In history today, 1348, the papal bull of Pope Clement VI was issued during the Black Death, stating that Jews were not to blame and urging their protection. In 1785, the US Congress unanimously resolved the name of US currency to the dollar and adopted the decimal. In 1885, Louis Pasteur gave an anti-rabies vaccine to 9-year-old Joseph Meister and saved his life. In 1886, Horlicks of Wisconsin offered the first malted milk to the public. Love malted milk. And 1908, Robert Leary's Arctic expedition sailed from New York City for the North Pole. In 1924, the first photo was sent across the Atlantic by radio, US to England. In 1928, the first all-talking motion picture was shown in New York, Lights of New York. In 1957, John Lennon, 16 years old, and Paul McCartney, 15 years old, met for the first time as Lennon's rock group Quarrymen performed at a church dinner. In 1971, the White House Plumbers Unit was formed to plug news leaks. In 1994, Forrest Gump started, starring Tom Hanks and Robin Wright, was released. And a few days ago, July 4th, 1964, had to slip this one in, the Beach Boys' I Get Around reached #1. Got to get the Beach Boys in there. Since you're from Rio, the beach.
Yes.
Today's holidays: National Fried Chicken Day, International Kissing Day, Umbrella Cover Day, and National Air Traffic Control Day. And now for the weekly rhyming wrap-up of the news, which we've done for, I don't know, almost every week for the last 8 years. This is the news in rhyme to sparkle the bloom. All right, here we go. Who's going to be New York's mayor? New York City sure needs a soothsayer. We all should confess, ranked choice voting's a mess. We all need to take a bayer. The Board of Elections, indeed, is filled with fraud and greed. We need a rehaul before the great fall, and preferably with great speed. There's been an epic fail. This is not a fairy tale. Test votes were included. New Yorkers deluded. I think I'll go eat some kale. The count was botched, so now the question is just how to redeem credibility with some agility. There should be a new voting vow. Brittany took the news lead until Bill Cosby was freed. Ms. Spears is still trapped. Will she ever adapt to this crazy conservator breed? She can't lead a life of her own. Her father is king of her throne. She's kept like a kid on a leash on a grid. Hope Brit can escape from this zone. Olympic Commission insanity that sparked even AOC's vanity to blast IOC's vision and silly decision and blatant inhumanity. For its marijuana ban, really? Come on, man. The track and field star's fate was sealed. A month's suspension, the plan. Will Shari May not qualify for the Tokyo Olympics, and why? She broke the rule. This should not be a duel. All I can do is sigh. The sprinter took a chance, but TSH does not enhance performance in sport. Take it to the court. It's another political dance. Drew Barrymore's on the scene for creating a magazine, a feel-good publication to uplift the nation with everything global and green. And it's Umbrella Cover Day, so parasol away. Try not to poke anyone with a spoke. Now where is my Chardonnay? And that's the weekly rhyming wrap-up of the news. And now we're back to our interview with my wonderful guest, Brazilian-born, now New York City resident, Alexia.
Actually born in America, but raised in Brazil.
Oh,
yes.
oh.
I was born here. My mom is American, but my dad is Brazilian. So I moved there when I was about 7, and then I came back, and then I went back again, and then it was a lot of going back and forth throughout my whole life.
I've read your bio, and it's like a lot of change.
It's confusing, yes.
I mean, I like to go back with musicians and singers and songwriters to your childhood and growing up days. And I know your father was a promoter. I wondered if there was if you always knew you'd be a musician, and was there a particular moment, an aha moment where you said, oh, this is what I want to do?
You know, I always knew that I wanted to be an artist. And I think that, you know, being exposed to live music and live performing art as a child certainly had a huge impact on what I was going to do. I always knew that I wanted to be that, but I actually started a little bit when I was a child. I was more into acting, but you know, just like the act of performing. And then I didn't really get into singing. Really, I didn't really discover that I could actually sing until I was in my mid-teens. I want to say like 15 or so. I started singing a little bit. My best friend, her dad got her mom a karaoke machine, and we lived in a small town outside of Rio in the mountains, and that's kind of how I started singing. And they were all like, "Oh my God, you can sing! And so that's I think I kind of transitioned into that, you know, knowing that I wanted to sing when I discovered that I could actually do it. But I always knew that I wanted to be in the performing arts.
Well, and
Definitely.
also they say great singers are great actors because they have to interpret and perform the song and just interpret the words. So that combined.
Sure. I think it all connects, it's all about maybe with singing, it's more about actually trying to feel that. Although, I mean, sometimes you're on tour and you're singing the same song for, over and over for a million times. But if you can still find that connection where it still moves you, that's when it's golden, I think we all search for that feeling when we're performing, even if we're doing the same thing for
Sure.
a long time.
Well, I know that this particular album, Suspiro, has been acclaimed as you going back to bossa nova roots. But
Hmm.
I know in some of your former albums, well, like Chasing Storms and Stars, it was said that you created cinematic sounds and psychedelic keyboards and electric guitars. But
Yeah.
Hero, it's more bossa, percussive, also some haunting melodies, which we're going to hear shortly. Do you prefer, the whole um, melancholy, haunting melodies, or do you prefer more, or is there a preference?
I don't think there's a preference, I think it just really depends on, what I'm feeling when I'm making something. It's Suspiro, it's definitely a departure from my latest, maybe a departure is not the right word, but it's different from the last work for sure. The last one, it's I was very it was the previous one we did in Austin in Texas, and I think we were also kind of inspired by the environment of the city that's around you. And I think that when you're creating something and you're making a record, it's easy to get not that it's a bad thing. It's not that it's easy. It's just it's part, like, where you're making the record is going to influence the sound that's coming out. I mean, that's at least how I feel. I like to take everything in, the weather and the sounds and the people that are around me and the musicians that are in that town and who you're collaborating with. So Chasing Storms definitely was more of like an indie rock folk with Brazilian vibes, because we did have some Brazilian percussion on that too. So there's always that element, but it was very different from this other record now, Suspiro, which is more of a bossa jazz. And the whole concept was, we want to record this all together in the same room, like the old jazz records, so it's very different in that way.
Well, let's hear one. Enough talking about the music. Let's hear some music from Alexia Bomtempo. By the way, that name, it's almost like you became your name, Bomtempo. Like, not become that name, right? It's great. It's classic.
It's true.
I would love, Jade, to start with number 6. I don't know how to pronounce this. Mais devagar?
That's pretty good. Your Portuguese is great.
Trying. What does that mean, Alexia?
It means slower. So that's actually an original song that I wrote, and Jake Owen helped me finish it and kind of shape it. But it's about, it means slower, and it's about the time that everybody has to heal from something or find what they're looking for. So it's about time and taking things slow and respecting that.
Oh, you're kind of psychic. Okay, so we'll hear number 6, Mais devagar, from the album Suspiro. That was Mais Devagar, performed by and written by Alexia Bomtempo with Jake Owen, co-writing, I guess, would you say?
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I just find your music so expressive, so lush, so transformative. If I'm in a bad mood, this will definitely get me out of it.
Oh, thank you, thank you. That's the best thing that I could hear. You know, it's
Well, I think also, and maybe you can explain this. I've talked about this with every Brazilian musician who's been on the show. That whole Brazilian idea of, I can't pronounce this, soldade, the longing thing. And
yes, saudade.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like even when it's a melancholy song, it feels very gratifying. And there's something
Mm-hmm.
very uplifting, even when it's melancholy, the longing. And that is a gorgeous song. How long does it take you to write a song like that? Or maybe,
You know, some people have systems when they write. I don't really have a system. You know, for me, it's very different. That particular one, I wrote it. It actually came about a couple of years ago. I was in Japan. I was doing a residency in Tokyo for a few months, and I was alone for. I mean, not alone, but you know, I wasn't on like it wasn't my band. The musicians were all from Japan, and I was, you know, traveling alone for quite some time, and I had a lot of time on my own. And I actually wrote that one in an afternoon at the hotel, and then Jake joined me later on, and I showed it to him, and he had some ideas for the, you know, the melody that. And, you know, and then he kind of helped me shape that up. But so that one, you know, maybe an afternoon it came about. But I've had songs that I still have some that I'm working on, and it's been months. And it really depends. I don't think that's the kind of thing that we really have control over. You know, as much as you can. I like having the assignment of trying to finish something, but sometimes if it's just not happening, it's not happening. You have to kind of respect that too. So
creative process, very intangible, very hard to express in words,
yes.
right? And do you have a preferred place or time to write? Morning, evening, or
Not really. I don't. You know, I really don't. It happens at different times of the day, and sometimes I'll have an idea for a melody when I actually do have a lot of ideas when I'm just walking.
ah,
You know, I like going for walks, and I've read some books on creativity and stuff, and people do mention that if you're kind of stuck, it's always good to go for a walk. But I like doing that regardless of being stuck on something or not. And I always find that I have some good ideas, and I'll record the melody and finish working on it later. But I
right?
like doing that.
If you think of it, you just record it for later.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, now we always have a phone, so it's easier. But that was an option. I used to have a little like tape recorder that I would carry around, and I would also keep it on my nightstand because I actually have a lot of melodies come to me in my dreams, and I don't know if that's really common, but you know, it's happened a few times where I'll wake up in the middle of the night with a great melody that I was dreaming about, and I really want to not forget that because
Well,
got
my
to
last
respect something that comes in your dreams.
guest, Ethan Gold, talked about, he said many of his songs come in dreams and he has to scribble
Mm,
them down. So that's the
hmm
person I've heard. I bet, I don't know if that's common or not, but it sounds dreamy, very surreal. I love that. Um, so you've been inspired by Blossom Dearie, and I think I read Radiohead. Are there any major influences? I know it's such a trite topic, but I love to hear who.
Sure. I mean, I think like I was telling you about my childhood, like being exposed to such different kinds of music as a child was so wonderful. Not just the records that we listened to at home. I don't know. I think that really helps shape, you know, what you're going to become later, what you're kind of exposed to as a child in terms of art and literature and music. And I was very fortunate to have great music always playing in my house, and I think that helped me. Definitely like some of the Brazilian, you know, classics, and like Caetano Veloso is a huge influence. Gal Costa, one of my favorite singers. But also like Joni Mitchell and Bob Dylan, even like rock, like the Stones. Like my my aunt is obsessed with the Rolling Stones, so like she would put that on in the speakers in the kitchen, and we were kids and we'd be dancing around. So it was very eclectic.
That's wonderful, actually.
Mhm.
And so you moved from you recently moved back to New York, or maybe 7 years ago or so.
Yeah, coming on 8 now, I guess, that I've been pretty much based in New York again.
Was there
But
an inspiration to get back to New York? Or
there was, I had never actually lived in New York until then. I would come and spend extended periods of time. I'd come and, be here for a whole summer or a couple of months or come tour and play somewhere. But I had never actually lived here, and I always wanted to have that experience. I knew it. So it was 2013, and I had just released an album album of Caetano Veloso songs in English called "I Just Happened to Be Here," and it was doing great. I was doing some shows in Brazil, and because it was in English, it did get a bit of international attention, in Europe and the States. And then I was invited to play at Brazil Summerfest that year, which is a wonderful Brazilian music festival that happens every year in New York. And I was just kind of like, I'm gonna go play this festival, and I'm just gonna stick around and see what happens. So I wasn't really planning on. I knew I was gonna stay for a while, but I wasn't like, okay, I'm packing up and I'm moving and that's it. So I actually came with just a big suitcase, and I stayed with. I had a bunch of friends. I already had a lot of friends in New York, so I stayed with some friends here, some friends there, and then I just ended up staying. And almost 8 years later, here I am.
did you fall in love with a particular part of New York to live in, or was it hard to find a place to live?
Oh yeah, I mean, my first apartment was terrible. Like every, first apartment should be in New York. It was like a 6th floor walk up. My room was like the size of I could just fit a bed, and the window, I could touch the wall outside. It was just very dark and depressing, like it should be. Like the first year in New York, you got to have that experience. But it was a good location. It was a nice location. Now I'm in Brooklyn, and I really like it. I've been here for about 8 months or so, and it's been really nice. I feel like I've had my years of Manhattan. It's nice to be here now.
Well, you're one of the diehards still in New York. Everybody seems to.
True.
We're amongst the left. We're left here. We decided to stay here. It's a conscious decision, right? Well, let's hear another song from Alexia Bomtempo's new album, Sospiro. Let's see, what do we want to hear? There's so many good ones. How about Fim de Sonho? Is that the correct pronunciation?
Yes.
And
Fim de Sonho.
what does that mean? That's number 5, Jade. 5.
Yes, that's the end of a dream.
Perfect.
Yes, and
the dream sequence.
that was it's a classic written by João Donato, who's an incredible Brazilian composer, pianist. And yeah, I'm really glad that we recorded this song.
Great. So here's Alexia Bomtempo with Fim de Sonho.
Você chega tão feliz e sempre, como quem não vê que o dia não é mais tão claro como a gente quer. Eu desligo e penso em outra história, uma história que já nem se vê, mas o dia já não é tão claro como a gente quer. Acontece que a noite agora aberto o céu. Novamente eu chego na janela. Você vem e diz que já não quer outro dia tão escuro agora como a gente vê. Acontece que a noite agora joga o véu, e eu me sinto como se essa noite fosse um claro dia aberto o céu. Novamente eu chego na janela. Você vem e diz que já não quer outro dia tão escuro agora. Outro dia tão escuro agora como a gente vê.
That was very dreamy and again enchanting, uplifting. It just makes me want to swoon. Theme de Sonio, and it's very hard to explain feelings because that's what music is about, feelings, right?
Mhm.
So if it makes you feel tranquil or exuberant, you've done your job, right? I just wondered, are the Brazilian audiences very different from the American or maybe New York audiences?
Yes, Brazilian audiences are definitely louder. But maybe Brazilians are just louder in general.
So when you recorded this, Alexia, you recorded everything in one studio, and
We
where
did.
did you do this?
We did it in Brooklyn. We did it in Bushwick at Super Legal Studio, which is it's owned by Mauro Refosco, who's a fabulous Brazilian percussionist, and Jake Owen, who produced the record as well. And so we did it all in, I mean, we did it in about a week. It was very fast.
Wow.
And the band, we recorded everybody together in 2 or 3 days, and the whole idea was to really kind of record it almost as a band, you know, thinking we didn't really rehearse in advance, or we just picked the songs and then we got together in the studio and we would play them maybe a couple of times and figure out an arrangement and then record them. And even some of the vocals I was tracking obviously in a separate room from them, but even most of the vocals are actually from when we were playing together. So it was really done in that way, you know, how people used to make records in the past, you know, it's about people playing music in a room. So it's almost like a, you know, live in the studio in that way.
Right. And how did you pick the musicians? I mean, you have so many musician friends, and Brazilian and American, and you have some amazing performers here. How did you put them all together, and how did you select?
Yeah, it was really well, Stefan and Jake are the producers, and Stefan, he was already playing with he was doing like a samba jazz trio. He had a project that he was kind of working on a few months before we had, we talked about making this record, and he was already playing with Eduardo Belo, who's a fantastic Brazilian bass player, and Vitor Gonçalves, who's this phenomenal piano player, also from Brazil. And so he was already playing with them. So they already kind of had this musical conversation going, It was easy in that way. So he suggested we invite them to be in the band. And then Jake played guitar. And after we got those tracks done, we invited Michael Leonard to play trumpet, and he played on most of the record. So that's really kind of like the only overdub that we did, except for some percussion that Stefan played afterwards too. But that's kind of how it came about. We had a concept in mind, we wanted to revisit or to kind of pay tribute to this bossa nova movement of the 60s and 70s, samba jazz. But so choosing some songs that have already been written and released, but also kind of shining light on new Brazilian songwriters like Domenico Lancelotti and Alberto Continentino, Bruno de Lulu, who are just fantastic, and also some of my own stuff too. So that was kind of the vision, and these musicians were just fantastic to execute what we had planned.
It's a beautiful compilation. I wanted to ask, I think I may ask after the next song, about your thoughts about creating alone versus collaborating. So think about that while we hear. I think I'd like to hear the full song title, the title of the album rather, Suspiro, written by Domenico Lancelotti and Bruno Di Lullo. Is that right?
Yes.
All right, so that's number 4, I believe, Suspiro, title of the album.
Entram nas minhas narinas seu vasto cabelo, entram nas minhas orelhas sãs, atentas ao suspiro seu. A noite cai na cicatriz atrás do mar, escorre o breu. A morte, amor, longo adeus. Dorme entre beijos seus. A noite cai na cicatriz atrás do mar, escorre o breu. A morte, amor, longo adeus. Dorme entre beijos
Well, now I feel even calmer. I feel extremely tranquil. And again, that's Suspiro, the title of the album, new album from Alexia Bomtempo. And was that the original? How did you choose that to be the name of the album? Was that your choice?
It was my choice. We didn't have a name for the album yet. And we had, I want to say we had already written, I mean, everything was done. I want to say we had already recorded everything, but we still didn't know what it was going to be called. And just one day thinking about it, I love the meaning of Suspiro, and I love the word. I actually like how it sounds in Portuguese. I even like how it sounds, with an American accent. I think it's just an interesting word. And there's also a sweet in Brazil, kind of like a meringue type thing that's called Suspiro as well. So I thought it would be an interesting title for a record.
Totally, like that's very sweet, literally. Brilliant choice. Back to the other question about creating or composing or performing alone versus collaborating as a composer. Do you have a feeling do you prefer one or the other?
I love collaborating. I love writing songs with other musicians and other songwriters. I think that there's something that happens when you write together, or if you write something first and then send it to that person and they come back with something. I think there's just something so magical about that, and I absolutely love it. One thing that's been, that was really keeping me alive and going throughout this whole pandemic was that I actually started writing songs with Alberto Continentino, who's one of the songwriters featured on the record. We had never written together, but after the record came out, we started talking about writing, and it's been so incredible. I basically write lyrics and I send them to him, and then he comes back with something so beautiful that I just could have never imagined. So I love that element of surprise too.
Who's the person that you just mentioned?
Alberto Continentino.
Oh, yes.
Yes, one of the songwriters featured on the record.
Les chansons d'amour.
Yes, Les chansons d'amour and Grão. He also wrote the melody for that.
Yes, another term. I just love hearing all these pieces. Why don't we hear? That's a good one to pick. Didn't originally have it, but I really do love it. So I think we'd like to hear number 2. I can't pronounce that one. Grau?
That's fine. Yes, that's a hard one to pronounce. It's Grão. But Grau is fine. That's always a challenge.
What does that mean, that word?
It means grain, like a seed. So it's about kind of like a seed of love and sunshine.
Beautiful. All right, let's hear it. Grau. That was Alexia Bomtempo once again with her most charming and uplifting and tranquil and exuberant album called Suspiro. And that was, the song title was Grau. Is that
Yes,
right?
that's right.
Oh, I love it. I love these songs. Your father, who was a music promoter, has he been thrilled with your career?
Is he what?
Has he been thrilled with your career?
Oh, yes, absolutely. He's been my biggest supporter from the beginning. He, I recorded my first demo through somebody that he knew. He introduced me to somebody, and that's kind of how, I started doing things. So he's been, yeah, absolutely a big supporter from the very beginning.
That really makes a difference. I mean, some parents are not happy with kids who become artists.
It's true. It's true.
Makes you feel like there's I think the level of confidence maybe is uplifted in some way. Is everything really. So the other piece of a song I wanted to hear, if we have a little time, we could just go on for hours here, but I want to hear a little bit of the piece Eles Querem Amar. Now, what does that mean?
That means they want to love.
Well. So let's hear a little bit, Jade, of number 5 by Jorge Ben.
Jorge Ben, yes.
Okay, we'll hear a little bit of that, and then we'll wrap up our little tete-a-tete. Eles Querem Amar.
Deixa falar, deixa zombar, deixa brigar, pois eles querem amar. Deixa falar, deixa zombar, deixa brigar, pois eles querem amar. A gente fala, a gente zomba, a gente briga, mas depois ama. A gente fala, a gente zomba, a gente briga, mas depois ama. Eu não sei falar muito bem. Não, 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 mas sei falar bem de amor. Disso eu sei que sei falar, zombar, brigar e amar. São as coisas dessa vida e no amor não pode faltar. Deixa falar, deixa zombar, deixa brigar, pois eles querem é amar. Deixa falar, deixa zombar, deixa brigar, pois eles querem é amar. A gente fala, a gente zomba, a gente briga, mas depois ama. A gente fala, a gente zomba, a gente briga, mas depois ama. Eu não sei falar muito bem. Não, 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 mas sei falar bem de amor. Disso eu sei que sei falar, zombar, brigar e amar. São as coisas dessa vida e no amor não pode faltar, por isso. Mas eles querem é amar.
We've been listening to another beautiful, just exquisite song from the new album Suspiro by Alexia Bomtempo. That was a piece called, I've lost my train, Eles Querem Amar by Jorge Ben. Is that right?
That's right. Hmm.
It's just the lush feeling of your songs that just make me so happy. Like I forget about all my problems when I hear your songs.
Good. That's the Brazilian way.
I love that. I love that. Some people have described that you go back and forth from American songs and bossa to tropicalia. What is tropicalia?
It was a movement in the 60s, and it was all about music and art, and taking influences from other parts of the world and kind of like giving them a Brazilian twist.
Ah, yes, the 60s.
Yeah.
And you have that sort of a semblance of a Astrid Gilberto tone in your.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I love her. I love everything that they did back with
Amazing.
the bossa nova movement, and gosh, all her records. I love it.
Reminiscent of her in some ways, which is a compliment, definitely. And so, what's coming up? Are you performing at Brazil Fest now?
Yes, actually, this will be my first live show since the pandemic began. So I'm very excited. This Friday, July 9th at Brazil Summer Fest in Dumbo. And we'll be doing some songs from Suspiro and some new things that I've been working on and revisiting some things that I like too. So I'm really excited about that. And I've been also recording a new album that will probably release next year at some point in the spring.
Wow, you're on the go with Alexia Bomtempo, which is AlexiaBom for meringue, TEMPO.com. So check out Suspiro and many other of her wonderful albums. It's just been a pleasure to have you finally on the show. Thank you so much for joining me, Alexia. And
thank you. The pleasure is mine. Thank you so much for having me, for this lovely conversation. And I'm so happy that the music and the record has moved you. That makes me, that fills my heart with joy. So that's the best thing that we could ever hear or expect. It's just that it's out there and it touches you. That's wonderful.
So much. And we're going to go out of Mia's World with another song with another wonderful video, and this one is called Evergreen, which seems very lush and tropical according to the weather again. And this is written by Alexia Bomtempo and Jake Owen.
That's right. And we actually shot this video upstate New York during the pandemic. So we shot this last September.
Where in upstate?
Yeah, near Wyndham in the Catskills.
Oh, nice. Very, very nice. Well, watch the video, listen to Alexia's beautiful music, and just relax. Thank you for joining Mia's World. Thank you so much, Alexia. Thank you, Jade. And welcome back to Mia's World. We'll see you again.